That night, hiding just behind the door, I heard every word. The second he signs, we kick him out. The old man gets nothing. My daughter-in-law, Sophia, said it with a smile, and my son, Alex. He didn't say a single damn word. A chill ran straight through me. I grabbed my keys, walked out without a coat, and the rain hit my face like it was trying to wash the whole memory away. That was the night I understood who they really were, and it was the night their downfall began. They say age gives you wisdom, but it doesn't protect you from pain. I'm 58 years old. I own 3 properties in Atlanta, a chain of hardware stores I built from scratch, and a heart that's now heavy with deceit. Respect is earned, they say. I earned it with sweat, with sleepless nights, with hard decisions, only to be treated like a burden in my own home, like some old man they need to strip clean before it's too late. The rain was coming down hard, soaking my cotton shirt. I didn't feel the cold. I only felt rage. A quiet, calculated rage. The rage of a man who has built empires and knows the most important battles aren't won with shouting, but with strategy. I drove aimlessly through the city until the tank was almost on empty. I ended up at a discreet hotel in Buckhead, the kind where nobody asks questions if you pay in cash. I sat on the bed, my clothes dripping, and for the first time in decades, I cried. I didn't cry from weakness, but from disappointment. I cried for the lost time, for the birthdays we'd celebrated, for every dollar I invested in the education of a son who now just let his wife plan my ruin. My name is Henry Hank Anderson. I was born in rural Alabama, but life brought me to Atlanta when I was just 17. In my pocket, I had $100 and a letter of recommendation to work at a small hardware store owned by a friend of my father's. In my mind, I had the hunger of someone who knows the world can be his if he just works hard enough. By 25, I was the manager. By 30, I bought my first store with a loan that kept me awake at night. By 40, I had 5 branches and a name that meant quality in the business. If you need it, Anderson's has it. That became our slogan. It wasn't just a business. It was my legacy. I married Helen at 27, a beautiful, smart woman from a good family. She gave me 2 sons, Alex and Michael. I raised them as I thought I should raise the heirs to what I was building, with discipline, with values, but also with the privileges I never had. I gave them everything. Maybe that was my first mistake. Helen died 8 years ago. Cancer. She went too soon, leaving me in charge of a business empire and 2 adult sons who, I believed, had learned the value of hard work and loyalty from me. Michael moved to London. He rarely calls. Alex stayed, married Sophia, gave me 2 grandchildren, and took an executive position in the company. Everything seemed perfect. The plan was working. My legacy would continue. Until, little by little, I started to notice the changes. First, it was small business decisions made without consulting me. Then, meetings I was no longer invited to. "It's just to let you relax, Dad," Alex would say. "You've worked enough." As if my experience, my vision, my gut instinct for the business had expired right along with my youth. Sophia, my daughter-in-law, started showing up at the main office more often. With her MBA and her wealthy family connections, she soon became Alex's special advisor. The old-timers, the loyal employees, started being replaced. The company's traditions were changed. My name was relegated to a plaque by the entrance that nobody reads. And then came the proposal. "Dad, we've been thinking. Why don't you retire? Sign over the holding company. We'll set you up with a generous lifelong pension and you can be free of all this pressure. You could travel, rest, enjoy your grandkids." It sounded reasonable. It sounded like they were concerned. And isn't that what every father wants? Concerned children? I almost accepted. I almost signed. I almost handed everything over. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the gleam in Sophia's eye when she mentioned the papers. Maybe it was the way Alex avoided my gaze. Or maybe it was just that same gut instinct that had kept me afloat all these years in a world of corporate sharks. "I'll think about it," I told them. "Give me a few days." And those days turned into weeks of silent observation, of listening behind doors, of reviewing documents when no one was watching, of slowly, painfully realizing that they were draining the corporate accounts, preparing a restructuring where my shares would be diluted to almost nothing, and positioning Sophia's family as the new majority partner. They were destroying my legacy from the inside. The night I confirmed it was the night of the rain. There was a dinner at my house that I built with my own two hands. A family gathering, where coincidentally their lawyer would be there, an old friend of Sophia's family, all set for me to finally sign. I excused myself early, pretending to be tired. I went to my room, but I silently crept back and stood behind the study door, where they were now talking freely, believing I was asleep. "What if he doesn't sign?" someone asked. "He'll sign," Sophia replied, with a certainty that chilled my blood. The old man trusts Alex completely. Besides, the lawyers already have Plan B. If he won't do it the easy way, we'll have him declared incompetent to manage his affairs. We've already got the doctor on our side. Isn't that a bit extreme? It was the lawyer's voice, surprisingly showing a shred of conscience. "It's just business," Sophia answered. "The second he signs, we kick him out. The old man gets nothing. We'll put the house in the kids' names, but we'll manage everything until they're older. The companies will be folded into the new corporate structure, where his stake will be minimal. It's better for everyone. He's old. What's he going to do with all that money at his age?" And then my son's silence. A silence that screamed louder than any word. A complicit silence. I felt the floor drop out from under me. Nearly 6 decades of life had prepared me for a lot, but not for this. Not for the betrayal of my own blood. I slipped out of there, like a ghost. I grabbed my car keys, my phone, and my wallet. Nothing else. Not even a coat to protect me from the storm that was hammering the city that night. A storm that seemed like a perfect reflection of the one now tearing everything apart inside me. In the hotel room, my clothes still damp and clinging to me, I made my decisions. The tears had stopped. Now there was only clarity. The cold clarity of a man who has been betrayed and has nothing left to lose. First, I called Charles "Chuck" Reynolds, my personal lawyer for 25 years. Not the company lawyer, but the man who handled my private affairs, the ones even Alex didn't know about. "Chuck, I need to see you tomorrow, first thing. Not at your office. Come to the Emperor Hotel, room 412. It's urgent. And Chuck, don't mention to anyone that we spoke." Next, I called Rob Galloway, an old friend in the banking sector. I asked him for information on recent movements in the corporate accounts. He confirmed my suspicions. They had been gradually transferring funds to new accounts where I was not a signatory. Finally, I made the hardest call, to Mike, my youngest son, in London. "Dad, do you know what time it is here?" His voice was sleepy. "Mike, listen to me. Do you remember the conversation we had the last time I visited you, about why you stayed away from the family business?" There was a silence, then a sigh. "Did Alex finally do it?" "You knew?" My voice cracked slightly. "I suspected. Sophia has always had that ambition, and Alex has always been weak around her. That's why I left, Dad. I couldn't be a part of it, but I couldn't face my own brother either. I need your help now, son. Not to confront him, but to protect what I built." "What do you need?" I briefly explained my plan. Mike listened in silence, and then, with a determination that reminded me of myself at his age, he agreed. "Get on the first flight to Atlanta. I'll be waiting for you." I hung up and lay back on the hotel bed. For the first time in hours, I felt something like calm. It wasn't happiness. No. It was the serene certainty of a man who knows he is about to fight a just battle, a battle for his dignity. The rain kept pounding against the window, but I no longer felt lost. I had a plan, and I had something Alex and Sophia would never have. The wisdom of someone who built something from nothing, and the determination of someone who refuses to watch it be destroyed by greed. Tomorrow, the counter-offensive would begin. Silent, calculated, final, like any good business strategy. They could try to take my company, my house, even my dignity. But there was one thing they could never take from me: my ability to reinvent myself, to get up after every fall, and this would be no exception. I fell asleep with one fixed idea in my mind. This betrayal wouldn't be my end. It would be the beginning of the most important lesson I would ever give my son and daughter-in-law. A lesson about respect, about consequences, about the fatal mistake of underestimating a man who earned everything he has with the sweat of his brow. I woke with the first ray of sun that snuck through the hotel curtains. I hadn't slept much, but I felt strangely rested, as if the burden of ignorance had been more exhausting than the knowledge of the betrayal. I took a quick shower and got dressed in yesterday's clothes, still slightly damp. It didn't matter. Soon I'd have access to everything I needed. Chuck arrived right on time. At 7:30 a.m., he was knocking on my door, leather briefcase in hand, his expression of concern turning to shock when he saw me. "Hank, what the hell happened? Your son's been calling everyone. He says you vanished last night, that he's worried about your health." I smiled bitterly. "Sit down, Chuck. I have a lot to tell you, and not much time." For the next hour I laid it all out. The retirement proposal, my suspicions, the conversation I'd overheard. Chuck listened intently, taking occasional notes, his face shifting from surprise to indignation, and finally to professional resolve. "What they're describing is basically family fraud, Hank. We could take them to court for this. No scandals, Chuck. I don't want to drag the family name through the mud. I want justice, but on my terms. Do you remember the Phoenix Protocol?" Chuck looked at me, then nodded slowly. The Phoenix Protocol was a strategy we had designed years ago, almost as a theoretical exercise. A parallel corporate structure with shell companies and protected assets, designed for a catastrophic scenario, like an unexpected bankruptcy or a hostile competitor's attack. I never thought I'd use it against my own family. "Are you sure? Once we set this in motion..." "Completely sure. Mike is flying in from London. He'll land this afternoon. He'll be a key part of the plan." Chuck nodded again, this time with resolution. "We'll need to move fast. If they're really planning to have you declared incompetent, we have to secure your personal assets before they try to freeze them." "Do it. And Chuck, I need one more favor. I want you to draft a new will, one that makes it very clear who my heirs are and under what conditions." My lawyer pulled out his laptop and we got to work. By noon, we had activated the Phoenix Protocol. Secret bank accounts were receiving transfers. Properties that not even Alex knew I owned were being secured, and the parallel structure was beginning to silently take control of the most valuable assets. I wasn't stealing. Everything we moved was legitimately mine. I was simply protecting it from those who wanted to rip it away from me. While Chuck made calls and sent electronic documents, I got a call at the hotel. It was Alex. "Dad? Where are you? We're all so worried." His voice sounded genuinely distressed. For a moment, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. What if I had misunderstood? But then I remembered Sophia's exact words, my son's complicit silence, the suspicious bank transfers. "I'm fine, Alex. I needed time to think." "Think? About what? You left in the middle of a storm, without telling anyone. We thought something terrible had happened to you." "Something terrible did happen, son. But now's not the time to talk about it. I'll be away for a few days. I need some space." Space. Dad, I don't understand. Is this about the retirement papers? If it is, we can talk about it calmly. There's no rush. Of course there was no rush now, because now I knew. We'll talk later, Alex. I have to go. Dad, wait. Where are you? We can come pick you up, talk in person. That's not necessary. I'm fine. I'll call you soon. I hung up before he could insist. My heart was pounding. Hearing his voice had affected me more than I wanted to admit. He was, after all, my son, my blood, the boy I once carried on my shoulders, the teenager whose grades I bragged about, the man I trusted to carry on my legacy. Chuck looked at me with understanding. It's normal to feel that way, Hank. But remember what you heard. You're not imagining this. I nodded, regaining my determination. I know. Let's continue the plan. By the time Mike landed at Hartsfield-Jackson that afternoon, we had almost everything ready. My youngest son came straight to the hotel, his face tired from the journey, but his eyes full of a resolution that reminded me of myself. We embraced in silence. A long hug, loaded with unsaid emotions. When we finally separated, Mike looked at the documents spread across the hotel table. "This is the plan?" he asked, glancing at some of the papers. "Part of it," I replied. "The other part requires something only you can do." I explained his role. Mike listened intently, asking occasional questions, offering ideas. Unlike his brother, he'd always had a natural instinct for business, an analytical ability that went beyond what could be taught in a school. It was a shame he'd chosen to stay away from the family company, or perhaps, given what had happened, it was for the best. "Are you sure you want to do it this way, Dad? There are other ways to fight them." "I'm sure, son. I don't want to destroy them. I just want to teach them a lesson about respect and about consequences." Mike nodded, understanding. "Then we start tomorrow." "Tomorrow," I confirmed. That night, in the solitude of the hotel room, after Chuck and Mike had left, I sat by the window, watching the illuminated city. The lights of the buildings, the headlights of the cars. Life going on, oblivious to personal dramas. I thought about Helen, my late wife, about what she would say if she were here. She'd probably advise moderation, forgiveness. Helen was always the voice of calm in my storms. "I'm sorry, my love," I whispered to the night, as if she could hear me. "This time, I can't just forgive and forget. This is about our legacy, about what we built together for them." A part of me felt a deep pain, not just for the betrayal, but for what I was about to do, for the family fracture that might be irreparable, for the grandchildren who might be caught in the middle. But another part, the part of the businessman who had fought against all odds, who had negotiated with sharks and survived, knew it was necessary. That sometimes the most important lessons are also the most painful. "Tomorrow it all begins," I told myself as the city lights twinkled like earthly stars. "Tomorrow they'll learn that you don't underestimate the old man." With that certainty, I got ready for bed. The next day would be the first day of the rest of my life. A life I thought was almost over, and that, ironically, thanks to my son's betrayal, was now opening up before me like a new chapter to be written. A chapter where I would once again take control of my company, of my legacy, of my dignity. The dawn brought a clarity that went beyond daylight. As I watched the city wake up from my hotel window, I knew today was the day I would begin to take back what was mine. Not just my material possessions, but my dignity. My phone buzzed. Another text from Alex, the 6th since last night. "Dad, please, just answer. We're so worried. If I did something to upset you, we can talk. Sophia is distraught." I could almost see the insincerity in every typed word. They weren't worried about me, but about the unsigned papers, about the plan that was starting to unravel with my unexpected disappearance. I didn't reply. Instead, I got dressed in the new clothes Chuck had brought over yesterday. A dark gray suit, white shirt, deep blue tie, my armor for the battle ahead. At 8:30 sharp, Mike knocked on my door. "Morning, Dad. Ready?" My youngest son had inherited his mother's determination and my pragmatism, a formidable combination that would now be essential to our plan. "Ready," I replied, adjusting my tie in the mirror. "Chuck is waiting for us at his office. Everything is set." We left the hotel through a side entrance to avoid being seen. The plan required my whereabouts to remain a mystery for a few more hours. Mike drove a rental car, nothing flashy that would draw attention. As we drove through the city streets, I felt a strange mix of nerves and calm. "Are you sure about this, Dad?" Mike asked, glancing at me briefly before turning his attention back to the traffic. "More sure than I've ever been," I replied. "But I need to know something, son. Why did you never tell me your suspicions about Alex and Sophia?" Mike sighed, gripping the steering wheel. "I tried in my own way. Remember 2 years ago, when I turned down the VP position you offered? I told you I'd rather build my own path in London." "I remember. That wasn't the whole truth. I'd already seen how Sophia manipulated Alex, how they were both starting to make decisions without consulting you. I tried to talk to my brother, but he accused me of being jealous, of trying to sabotage his marriage." Mike paused, visibly affected. "And you seemed so proud of him, so confident in his abilities." I didn't want to be the one to shatter that image. His words hit me like an invisible fist. How many signs had I ignored? How many subtle warnings had I dismissed because of my own pride and my desire to believe my eldest son was the perfect heir? We arrived at Chuck's offices in a sleek building in Midtown. His firm occupied an entire floor. Unlike many flashy lawyers, Chuck kept his decor sober and functional. His power was in his brilliant mind and his flawless connections, not in appearances. He met us in his private office, where 2 other people were already waiting. Ramiro Sotomayor, my personal accountant for 2 decades, and Jimena Cortez, a sharp corporate law specialist Chuck had recently brought onto his team. "Hank, Mike," Chuck greeted us formally. "We're ready. Phase 1 of the Phoenix Protocol was completed last night. The primary assets are secure." I sat at the head of the conference table, feeling the weight of the situation. For a moment, the sheer scale of what we were about to do overwhelmed me. I was about to execute a plan that would potentially destroy my relationship with my eldest son forever. "Dad?" Mike's voice brought me back. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, let's continue." Chuck spread several documents on the table. "As you can see, we've activated the shell companies we created years ago as a preventive measure. Legally, Southern Industrial Supply now controls 60% of the shares of Anderson's Hardware. The transaction went through last night, using the powers of attorney Hank signed when we established the Phoenix Protocol." "And the other 40%? Mike asked. 30% is still held by Hank directly, and 10% is in the name of a new foundation we've just established. Technically, Alex is still the CEO of Anderson's Hardware, but he now answers to a board of directors controlled by us." Jimena spoke up. "We've also prepared a formal letter requesting an extraordinary audit of all corporate accounts for the last 3 years. This will expose any irregularities in their recent financial movements." "And the properties?" I asked. Ramiro, my accountant, took the floor. "The 3 main properties, including the family home, have been temporarily transferred into an irrevocable trust. Neither Alex nor Sophia can touch them now, even with their supposed Plan B to have you declared incompetent." I nodded, processing. The plan was working perfectly. In less than 24 hours, we had legally secured everything I'd built. Now came the most delicate phase, the confrontation. At 3 in the afternoon, I sent a text to Alex. "I'm fine. I needed time to think. I'll be home for dinner. We have a lot to talk about. His reply was immediate. Thank God, Dad. We were so worried. Of course, we'll be waiting. Do you need us to pick you up somewhere? No need. I'll get there on my own. Mike insisted on driving me to the house, though we agreed he wouldn't come in. His presence in Atlanta was still a secret for now. As we drove towards Tuxedo Park, where my family home was, Mike broke the silence. Dad, there's something we haven't discussed. The grandkids. The grandkids. Mateo, 7, and Lucia, 5. Alex and Sophia's children. My grandchildren, whom I adored. What about them? I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. All of this. It's going to affect your relationship with them. I felt a knot in my throat. It was the most painful part of this whole situation. The kids were innocent. I know, I admitted heavily, but what choice do I have? Let Sophia and Alex strip me of everything. What kind of example would I be setting? That it's okay to betray the people who gave you everything. That family loyalty means nothing? Mike was quiet for a moment. You're right. Let's try to protect them as much as we can. They'll never know the details of this, not from me. As I approached the front door of my own house, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. This was my home, the place I'd built for my family, where I'd raised my sons, where I'd spent the last years of Helen's life. But now, for the first time, I felt like a stranger approaching enemy territory. Before I could even ring the bell, the door flew open. Alex stood there, his expression of relief so convincing, it almost made me doubt what I'd heard. Dad! He exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. You had us so worried. I returned the hug mechanically, searching inside myself for any trace of the unconditional love I'd always felt for him. It was still there, buried under layers of disappointment and betrayal, but it was there. I'm sorry, I murmured. I needed time to think. Come in, he urged, stepping aside. Sophia's in the living room with the kids. I walked into my own home feeling like a guest. The familiarity of the place was a painful contrast to my new reality. Every object, every piece of furniture held a memory, and now all of it was tainted. Sophia shot up from the sofa when she saw me. Her face was a mask of concern, but her eyes told a different story. There was something calculating in them, something I'd never noticed before. Hank, thank heavens, she said, coming over to kiss my cheek. We were so worried. Grandpa! The voices of Mateo and Lucia broke the tension as they ran to me. I crouched down to receive their hugs, a wave of genuine love washing over me, almost bringing me to tears. My little ones, I murmured into their hair, holding them tight. Dinner was an exercise in forced normalcy. Sophia had made my favorite dish, pot roast, obviously an attempt to soften me up. The kids dominated the conversation with stories from school, a welcome relief from the underlying tension. Grandpa, Mateo said, as we were having dessert, homemade apple pie, is it true you're not going to work anymore? I felt Alex and Sophia tense up. They had clearly been talking about it in front of the children, which angered me deeply. Who told you that, champ? I asked softly. I heard Mom telling Aunt Claudia on the phone that you were retiring soon, and we could all go on a big vacation to Europe because you'd have lots of free time. I looked at Sophia, whose face was now a mix of embarrassment and alarm. I didn't know we were already planning family vacations, Sophia, I commented, my tone light. You have to... Oh, you know, she stammered. We were just speculating. You know how kids are. They overhear bits and pieces. When it was time for the kids to go to bed, I insisted on reading them a story. It was our tradition, one I'd neglected lately. Grandpa! Lucia's sleepy voice stopped me as I was about to leave her room. Yes, princess. Is it true you're going to go live somewhere else? Her question hit me like a punch to the gut. Who told you that, sweetie? I heard Mom talking to Dad. She said you'd be living in a smaller house soon because this one would be ours. I had to use every ounce of self-control to keep my voice steady. They weren't just planning to strip me of everything. They were already talking about it as a done deal, right in front of the children. "Don't you worry about that, my love," I said, kissing her forehead. "Grown-ups talk about all sorts of what-ifs. The only thing you need to know is that I'll always be close to you, no matter what." She smiled, reassured, and quickly drifted off to sleep. I walked out of her room with a cold new resolve. There was no more room for doubt or second-guessing. My son and his wife were not only betraying me, they were poisoning my grandchildren against me, making them think I was just a piece of old furniture to be moved out. I walked downstairs. Alex and Sophia were in the living room, talking in hushed tones. They went silent when they saw me. "Are the kids asleep?" Sophia asked with a practiced smile. "Yes," I answered curtly. "They have some interesting questions about my future. Seems they've been overhearing things." Sophia's smile faltered. Alex cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Dad, you know how kids can misinterpret things." "Save it, Alex." I cut him off, my voice calm. "I've been thinking about your proposal, and I'm ready to take the next step." They looked at each other, stunned by my sudden turnaround. "Really?" Sophia couldn't hide her excitement. "Yes, but I want to do it right. Nothing rushed." "Of course, Dad," Alex nodded, visibly relieved. "Like I said, there's no hurry." "Good. Because I want my own lawyer to review all the documents before I sign anything. And I also want a formal meeting with the company's board of directors." I saw a flash of panic in their eyes. They hadn't counted on me involving my personal lawyer or the board, many of whom were old friends who would question such a sudden change. "Dad, I don't think we need to complicate things," Alex said, trying to sound reasonable. "It's a family matter after all." "A family matter that involves a company with hundreds of employees and millions in assets," I replied firmly. "It will be done correctly, or it won't be done at all." Sophia jumped in, her voice smooth. "Hank, we understand your concern, but trust us. Everything is designed for your well-being, and the family's." I looked her straight in the eye, letting a fraction of the contempt I felt show. Trust, Sophia, is a funny thing. It's earned, and once it's broken, it's very hard to get back. A tense silence fell over the room. I saw fear in her eyes, just for a second. "Anyway," I continued, "I'll call Chuck tomorrow to have him review the papers. And I want that board meeting the day after." "Whatever you want, Dad," Alex conceded. I stood up. "Well, it's been a long day. I'm going to bed." Back in my room, I sent a text to Mike. "Phase 2 complete. The real counterattack begins tomorrow." His reply was immediate. "Everything's ready on our end. Get some rest, Dad. Tomorrow is a big day." I got ready for bed, but before I turned out the light, I looked in the mirror. I thought Helen always said, "Revenge doesn't bring peace." Maybe she was right. But this isn't revenge. It's justice. It's protecting what I built. And it's teaching a lesson about consequences. If I lose my son in the process. Maybe I already lost him a long time ago, and I just refused to see it. I turned off the light and fell into a surprisingly peaceful sleep. The storm had passed. Now, the cleanup began. The next morning dawned clear, as if nature itself was reflecting the clarity in my mind. I got up early and made my own coffee. Sophia found me in the kitchen, surprised. "Good morning, Hank. I didn't expect to see you up so early." "Old habits, Sophia. 30 years of running a company don't just disappear." She nodded, uneasy. "Can I get you some breakfast?" "No, thanks. I have a meeting in an hour. Just came down for coffee." "A meeting? With who?" The alarm in her voice was faint, but I caught it. "With Chuck, my lawyer," I said casually. "As I mentioned, I want him to review the retirement papers." "Of course. That's understandable. Though I assure you, everything is in order." "I'm sure it is, but it's still a big step, handing over control of everything I've built." I finished my coffee and headed for the door. "What time will you be back?" she asked. "Not sure. I have a few things to take care of. Tell Alex I'll call him later." I left without waiting for a reply. Mike was waiting a block away. "Morning, Dad. How did it go?" "Revealing," I said, buckling my seatbelt. "They're scared. Now let's go. It's time for the President Emeritus to pay a surprise visit to the office." The main offices of Anderson's Hardware took up the top 3 floors of a modern tower in Midtown. The lobby was dominated by the company logo I'd designed myself years ago. A stylized A made from a wrench and a hammer. Simple, strong. The receptionist, a young woman I didn't recognize, looked up in surprise. "Mr. Anderson, we weren't expecting you." "Clearly," I said with a polite smile. "Don't worry, I know the way to my own office." "But Mr. Alex isn't in yet." "I'm not here to see him." Mike and I headed for the elevators. As we rode up, I glanced at him. "Nervous?" "A little," he admitted. "It's been years since I set foot in this office." "Well, get ready for some surprise faces, especially when I announce your new role." The elevator doors opened, and just as I'd expected, our arrival caused a stir. Employees who had known me for years stared as I walked confidently toward the main conference room, with my youngest son at my side. Alex's executive assistant tried to intercept us. "Mr. Anderson, there's no meeting scheduled." "I don't need my son's permission to use the conference room in my own company, Mariana," I said firmly. "Please, assemble all department heads who are in the building. Emergency meeting in 15 minutes. "But sir, I can't." "You can and you will," Mike cut in, his voice carrying an authority that made me proud. "Unless you'd rather explain later why you disobeyed a direct order from the chairman of the board." Mariana paled. Clearly no one had bothered to tell her that I was, technically, still the chairman. "Yes, sir. Right away." We entered the conference room. Mike whistled as he looked out at the panoramic view of the city. "Impressive, Dad. You've done a hell of a job." "We've done a hell of a job," I corrected. "This company is just as much yours as it is Alex's. Always has been." The directors filed in, one by one, their faces a mix of confusion and concern. I recognized the familiar faces. Javier Olmedo, our CFO for a decade. Gabriela Ruiz, head of operations. But there were new faces too, clearly loyal to Alex and Sophia. I stood at the head of the table. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming on such short notice. For those who don't know him, this is my son, Michael Anderson. He's returned from London to join the company." Murmurs of surprise. "I've called this meeting to inform you of some changes in the corporate structure. Changes that unfortunately have not been properly communicated by general management." Javier, the CFO, spoke up. "Hank, with all due respect, we were under the impression you were retiring. That's what Alex has been telling us." "A premature interpretation of my intentions," I said calmly. "While I have stepped back from day-to-day operations, I never intended to fully abandon the company I founded." Gabriela, always loyal, smiled. "We're glad to hear that, Hank. Things have been confusing around here lately." "Precisely. Which is why, as of today, we're implementing a new administrative structure. Southern Industrial Supply, a holding company that now controls 60% of the shares of Anderson's Hardware, has appointed a new board of directors. One of the new directors, a clear ally of Alex, challenged me. "Excuse me, Mr. Anderson, but what holding company? We have no knowledge of such an acquisition." Mike slid a folder to the center of the table. "All the legal documentation is right here. The transaction was completed 2 days ago. Curiously, the CEO didn't feel it was important to inform you." Javier opened the folder, his eyes scanning the documents, his face going from disbelief to understanding. This is all legal, but who controls this holding company?" "I do," I said simply. "I've always believed in protecting my assets, a lesson some people seem to have forgotten." The room went dead silent. "As of today," I continued, Michael Anderson will assume the role of Chief Restructuring Officer, reporting directly to the new board. His first task will be to conduct a full audit of all financial and operational decisions made in the last 3 years. I could see the fear in the eyes of Alex's allies. Hank, Javier started. Is Alex aware of this? He will be soon, I said. As if on cue, the conference room doors burst open. Alex stood there, his face pale with anger and shock. He froze when he saw Mike sitting at my right hand. Mike, what are you doing here? He turned to me. Dad, what is this? What's going on? I remained calm. I was just informing the executive team about the new corporate structure, Alex, the one you failed to tell them about. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about, Mike said, his voice cold. Or you should. As CEO, aren't you supposed to track the share movements of your own company? Alex looked like he was going to be sick. This is a betrayal. The irony almost made me laugh. Betrayal, son? That's an interesting choice of words. I turned back to the directors. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for your time. Mike will provide you with all the necessary details. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to have a private conversation with the CEO. One by one, they filed out, leaving Alex and me alone. He collapsed into a chair. Why, Dad? Why are you doing this? I looked at him, searching for the boy I'd raised. That night, I said quietly, the night of the storm, I stood behind the study door. I heard everything. When he signs, we kick him out. The old man gets nothing. It was Sophia who said it. But you, Alex, you stood there in silence. And your silence was your answer. The color drained from his face. Dad, I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I heard it all. The plan to have me declared incompetent. The plan to take my house, my company, everything. It's not what you think. Sophia she exaggerates. Enough. My voice boomed in the room. Don't insult my intelligence. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me? By plotting to steal it all? He looked down, defeated. I'm sorry, he whispered. Sorry isn't good enough, Alex. What happens now? What do you want? I want you in the house tonight. You and Sophia. We're going to have a conversation we should have had a long time ago. A conversation about the future and about the past that led us here. I walked out, leaving him alone. Mike was waiting. How'd it go? It was hard, I admitted, but it was necessary. Now let's go. We have to prepare for the final confrontation tonight. As we walked to the elevator, I felt a deep, profound sadness, but also that same cold clarity. The storm was over. The consequences were just beginning. The rest of the day was a blur. Mike and I met with Chuck, finalizing the legal details. Legally, Hank, your position is ironclad, Chuck confirmed. They can't touch you. And the kids? I asked. I've drafted an educational trust in their names. No matter what happens with Alex and Sophia, their futures are secure. Good, I nodded. That's the most important thing. When I arrived home that evening, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The kids, thankfully, were at a friend's house for a sleepover. Alex and Sophia were waiting for me in the living room. He looked defeated. She looked defensive. Good evening, I said, taking a seat. Dad, Alex started. Before you say anything, I want you to know I'm sorry. What you heard, that wasn't me. Oh, then who were you, Alex? The son who sat quietly while his wife planned to throw his own father out on the street. Sophia jumped in. Hank, it was a misunderstanding. You took my words out of context. What context? I shot back. Makes the old man gets nothing sound acceptable? What context justifies planning to have me declared incompetent? The silence was their confession. What hurts the most, I continued, is that you are willing to poison my grandchildren's minds, making them think their grandfather was just an obstacle to be moved aside. We never wanted to hurt you, Alex mumbled. You just wanted my money, I said. My house, my company. Don't lie, son. Not anymore. So what do you want, Hank? Sophia asked, her voice hard. Revenge? No, Sophia. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to inform you of my decisions. I placed 3 envelopes on the coffee table. The first one contains the terms of the new corporate structure. Alex, you're still CEO, for now. But you report to a board chaired by me, with Mike as your new VP of restructuring. Every major decision will be approved by us. Alex just nodded. The second envelope contains the trust for Matteo and Lucia. Their future is secure. The third envelope, I said, is the most important. It contains the deed to a new house in Decatur. It's for you. They stared at me, confused. I don't understand, Alex said. I'm giving you a fresh start, I clarified. Because this house, my house, is no longer your home. You have 2 weeks to move out. Dad, Alex whispered, this is our home. The kids are always welcome here. This will always be their grandpa's house. You too, however, will need an invitation. And if we refuse? Sophia's eyes flashed. I smiled, a cold, tired smile. Then the first envelope gets replaced with another one that contains your termination, Alex, along with a formal complaint for financial irregularities. We've already found enough in the preliminary audit. Her face went pale. You're our family, she whispered. And because you are my family, I'm offering you a dignified exit. Don't mistake my compassion for weakness. You have until tomorrow to decide. I stood up and walked to the door. Dad, wait, Alex called out. We need to talk this out, as a family. I paused. We should have done that a long time ago, son. You should have thought of that before you chose silence. I walked out into the cool night air. There was no rain, just a calm, quiet clarity. Mike was waiting in the car. How did it go? He asked. It was painful, I said, getting in. But it's done. 3 months later, I was in my backyard, watching my grandkids play on a new swing set. Mike, who had decided to stay in Atlanta permanently, was manning the grill. The front gate opened, and Alex walked in. He was bringing the kids back. Our relationship was strained, but we were working on it. For the kids. Dad, Mike, he said, nodding. The swing set looks great. That's the idea, I said. Sophia didn't come. She had a job interview, he explained. With their income cut, she'd had to go back to work. Good for her, Mike said, and he meant it. An awkward silence fell, broken by the kids. Are you staying for a burger, Dad? Lucia asked Alex. I looked at my oldest son. Are you? I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that. Thanks, Dad. As we sat there, my 2 sons and my grandchildren, I knew things would never be the same. The trust was broken, maybe forever. But as I looked at my family, scarred, imperfect, but still my family, I realized the true victory wasn't in the punishment. It was in defending my dignity. That night in the rain, something broke. But from that break, something stronger and wiser emerged. I had faced the worst, and I had survived. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.